Jambalaya and restaurant memories today on Dinner at Joe's. Welcome to Dinner at Joe's. I'm Joseph Duggan, and tonight we're going to be cooking a memory. We're going to tackle jambalaya for a third time here on my channel. It was first tackled on this program, Dinner at Joe's. We made a one-pan jambalaya. We next prepared it in my recent Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday special. We prepared a real traditional one where the rice and the jambalaya were separate. Today we're going to work on a memory. When I was younger, we used to dine at a restaurant called Antoine's. It was located in Capitola, beautiful city south of Santa Cruz, California, on the Central Coast. It's on Monterey Bay. And part of Capitola is Capitola Village, which is right by the sea and right by the beach. And one of the restaurants in Capitola Village was a restaurant called Antoine's, obviously named after the famous Antoine's restaurant in New Orleans in the French Quarter district. And when we went there, I don't know if I was the one who ordered it or it was ordered for me, but somebody chose jambalaya. And the jambalaya came with chicken and andouille sausage. It was really spicy and hot. And eating it right at the beginning, it was hard to eat because I was not used to spicy food at that point. But I realized that it tasted so good that I just kept eating it and eating it and eating it, and it was lovely, and I ended up really enjoying it. So every time we went, that's what I always ordered. Today we're going to prepare that, and this jambalaya is going to be slightly different than our other jambalayas because it contains no tomato in it whatsoever. We are going to be using chicken. I have 1 1/4 pounds of diced chicken here that I cut up myself, and I've just seasoned it with salt. I also have 4 links of andouille sausage. We're going to cook the chicken and the sausage. We're going to brown it in our big cocotte. Very important step. But then we're going to move it to a saute pan where the chicken and the sausage, even though this is fully cooked, it's going to get more tender cooking with the chicken, so that when we go to put this chicken and sausage into the rice, everything will cook within 25 minutes. First thing we're going to do is what I have here is a smoked pork neck bone. I'm going to go over to the stove and I'm going to slide this pork neck bone into a quart of chicken stock, low sodium chicken stock. That is important. And I'm going to turn the burner on and we're going to bring it to a boil. And when it hits a boil, I'm going to drop it to a simmer and I'm going to let it simmer for half an hour. We will use some of that chicken stock before that half an hour time, but after half an hour is when we're going to be able to use the stock for our jambalaya itself. Slide it into the pot, turn it on high, and that's just going to add an extra smoky flavor to our beautiful recipe. And once we're done using that smoked pork neck bone, what we're going to do with this, we're just going to save it and we can use it for other recipes to flavor greens, and we will have a little leftover stock too. Now we're going to talk about the spice blend. And for our spice blend, what I have here, I have 1 teaspoon of black peppercorns, a teaspoon of white peppercorns, a teaspoon of green peppercorns, teaspoon each of marjoram, thyme, and oregano, 4 bay leaves, and for spiciness I have half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper and half a teaspoon of hot Hungarian paprika. And it needs to be the hot paprika. And I'm going to pull the spice grinder out here and we're going to slide everything into the grinder. Use a little brush here and we're going to grind it all to a fine powder. Grinding the bay leaves instead of just adding them gives them more, brings out more of their flavor. Now this is how I like to do it here, is sealed like this. And I'll be able to see into the tin, the grinding tin itself, of how far down it's ground. It's important to get it as finely ground as possible. And in this recipe, we're not using any tomato product whatsoever. Nor are we using any products containing roux. My other jambalaya recipes often contain sauce espagnole or even just a spoonful of dark roux for the flavor. For this recipe, it's going to be different. Let's open up here. It's almost all the way ground. It's important that it's finely ground. The other flavorings we have, we're going to use a little Worcestershire and a little Crystal hot sauce. And then the most important ingredient here in the flavoring is our holy trinity. Classic onions, green bell pepper, and celery. And I have 2 small ribs of celery, 1.5 ribs of celery, a green bell pepper, small, and 1 large onion that's been chopped. They've all been cut in small dice, as you can see there. And then we have 2 cups of jasmine rice. And the ratio of rice to stock liquid that we're going to be using today is 1 1/4 parts liquid to 1 part rice. So we're going to need 2.5 cups of liquid. Now that our spice blend is just about ground, okay. Now we will pour it out here. That is our spice blend. And there isn't a lot of paprika. It's not very red, and that is very important in this recipe. Slide that out of the way. That's our spice blend. Now when we come back, we're going to be at the stove and I'm going to show you how to we're going to deal with our chicken and our sausage first. We are now at the stove and I have my casserole heating. And I'm going to place 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. This is avocado oil. It's what I like to use here. And we're going to heat it up until we get the oil is hot, and you'll see it shimmering, or smiling as they also call it. And the chicken I have cut up and just seasoned with salt. We haven't put any other seasoning onto the chicken. Also going to grab a ladle here that we can use with our stock, because we're going to take a little bit of our stock out, about half to 3/4 of a cup to start with. We're going to use it to cook our chicken and our sausage. Also going to grab a lid here to cover our pan here. Excellent. All right. Now that our oil is hot, we're going to start adding our chicken in here. When this stock hits a boil, then we're going to drop it to a simmer and let it simmer for half an hour. Which it's boiling now, so I'm going to turn it down and let it simmer. Okay, now we're going to start to add our chicken in here. I'm going to do this in one layer here. Spread the chicken out here. It should be able to fit all along the bottom of the pot. If you were doing more chicken than this, you would need to do it in batches. Okay. Now we'll get rid of that. And the goal is we want to get lots of good color onto this chicken. I'm going to turn the bone in the broth here. Let it simmer. Okay. Give it a little toss. Anything that ends up on the bottom of this pot is what we want to see, so it's not important if you lose any little bits. It's all going to end up in the jambalaya itself. Now we'll evenly redistribute. And then once the chicken is done, it's going to go into this pan here, which I'm going to turn on to medium heat and start preheating this pan here. Leave it. After it gets redistributed and flipped over, just leave it alone. You want to get some good color, so make sure it's in one single layer. The chicken is sitting on top of each other, it's going to steam, and then it'll stew in its own juices rather than get nice brown color. So that's important. Into our pan here that's preheating, we're going to take 3/4 of a cup. One, that's 4 ounces, and that's 6 ounces. If we need to add any more stock later, we can. We have extra stock in our pot here. Okay. All right. The chicken has not been trimmed of any fat. I like that little bit of extra fat, because it can easily be spooned off if need be, or spooned out, and we might not need to add any more fat into our pot here once we're done. It all depends. That's why I leave it on, because it renders out anyways, and it adds flavor. So. starting to get some nice color. Get that piece flipped over here. There we go. Going to turn this front pan up to high, and we're going to start adding our chicken. Our brown pieces of chicken in here. Just be careful. I'm using a metal spoon in this pan here. Just be really careful with it, you know. It's very important that you don't. Now we're going to put in the sausage. We're going to put the sausage in one layer as well. I'm using today an andouille sausage, which is a smoked sausage from Louisiana, but you could also use chorizo, if you could find chorizo sausages, or linguiça would be a nice decent substitute. Linguiça would work. You could use if you had to, you could use a bratwurst or a kielbasa, but it's not the same. Now that this is boiling, we're going to turn it down so it doesn't boil over here. And then we're going to be adding the sausage directly to the chicken here. These sausages are fully cooked, so we're just getting a little color on them. And they're going to stew with our chicken. They don't take very long. And then we're going to turn off this pot, and we're just going to leave the dripping as it is. I'm going to shut it off now, as the sausage is done enough to my liking. We're going to slide the sausage in with the chicken. We can now boost the heat back up under our chicken here. So when it all hits a boil, we're going to drop it to a simmer, cover, and let it cook for half an hour. We're going to let it cook for the first part of the cooking process is going to be 20 minutes covered, and then we're going to cook it uncovered for another 10 minutes. Now we can leave those drippings in there. Now that this is boiling, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cover the pan here, and I'm going to drop the heat to a simmer. And we're going to let this mixture cook. When we come back, our stock will be ready to use, and this will be ready to uncover. So I will see you in a few minutes. Welcome back to Dinner at Joe's and our Jambalaya Memories episode. We are now going to pull the cover off of our chicken here. Give it a stir. Now this has 10 more minutes to cook, and we're going to raise the heat to finish the cooking process here. We're also going to remove our piece of pork, and we're going to leave this back burner on low and just keep it hot and ready for the rest of our recipe. We'll pull out that pork. We're not going to need it anymore. Now we're going to proceed with our recipe here. We're going to turn on our big burner, and I'm going to put just another teaspoon of oil in here to augment the fat that's already in there. We're going to heat the fat up in our large pot here. The goal here is we need to cook this chicken and cook out the liquid. That's why the heat's on high, because it's got about 9 more minutes to finish cooking. This pan is still a little hot, so slide our Creole mirepoix, known as the Holy Trinity, and our garlic. We're also going to put, at this point, salt, which is going to draw out the moisture, and our seasoning, our spice blend, which is also very important because we need to bloom our spices. That's why I added a little extra fat in here, because it's important that the spices are blooming. All the fond is going to be removed from the pot as everything cooks. I'm going to show you a little secret here that you will see here today. I'm just going to grab a little cup. I'm going to put half of a cup, half to 3/4 of a cup of water into this pot. And what the water is going to do here is the water is going to cause, it's going to help tenderize all the vegetables. We're going to cook this until the water is gone over high heat, which is a very important step in this process. Give this a stir. We are almost fully cooked here. That's our broth. I'm going to turn off the chicken now because it's done and ready to go. Now this, very importantly, we need to cook this until all the water is gone, because we're going to be sauteing our rice in this pot. We have our red wine here. Our rice ready to go. As you can see, our chicken is fully cooked. And there is virtually no liquid left. There's some juices. Very important here is we need to cook this mixture until all the water is gone. That speeds the process of tenderizing the onions. But there can't be any water left in here when we add the rice, because the rice has to cook for 4 minutes. It has to cook for 2 to 4 minutes. Stirring it constantly to bring out the flavors. I'm going to put a drop of our stock in here, 2 tablespoons, and that's just so we don't get any burning on the bottom, because the pan is still very hot. So we're getting nice tender veggies. You will know when this is cooked that all the water will be gone and you will see the oil again. That's very important. Similar to Indian food, they use the same preparation where they have a paste of vegetables. Often the common one is cilantro stems plus garlic and ginger and onion and chili, and it's usually the green chili, the fresh green chili that they use. But the paste can also have pepper in it, and then it also gets this. The paste is, but usually they add the spice blend to the paste. So we're getting close here. We're seeing less water. It's going to be very fragrant when before we add the rice. Becoming very fragrant, and that's very important. The spices roast in the hot fat. Yeah, I'm looking at this, and now the water is pretty much gone. We're going to continue to cook it till our veggies have a little color on them and everything is fragrant. Which will bring out all the flavors in the spices. And you're going to generate a little fond back on the bottom of the pot, which is what you want. It's all flavor. Now I'm going to go ahead here, and this is looking about done to me. Yeah, we're going to add the rice now. Grab the handle of the pot. And now we're going to let the rice cook for minutes. 4 minutes. And that's 4 minutes. And I'm going to turn the heat down to about medium and let it cook for 4 minutes. The sauteing of the rice is an important step. Just like rice pilaf, Mexican rice, and risotto, the toasting of the rice is important. With Mexican rice, you cook the rice for almost 10 minutes in hot fat. And it really is going to add flavor and give you a nice separate grains. Delicious recipe. Even though there's 2 extra pans that we had to use, it can be served right out of this pot, and it's pretty easy to do. Very important to not stop stirring during this step. You don't want anything to burn, and this rice can stick on the bottom and then it'll start to burn, and that's not good. I'll go and measure out the wine. You're going to use about 6 tablespoons of red wine here. Okay. A silicone spatula or a wooden spatula would do fine too. I like my Exoglass mixing spatula here. That's about 3 minutes, and I'm looking at it, and this is, for me, this is done. So we're going to take our wine We're going to add our red wine and we're going to stir it in. We're going to let the wine fully cook in before we proceed and add stock. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and add stock in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 8 ladles, 2-ounce ladles of stock. We're going to slide our chicken and our sausage and all the goodies in there. It's all delicious flavor. Scrape the sides to get it all down. Okay. Gonna add some more salt in here because the only time you can season is now. So that's important. We're also going to put in a shake of Lee & Perrins Worcestershire sauce and a shake of Crystal hot sauce. And then we will taste it once I get everything stirred to see if we have enough seasoning in here, which is of utmost importance. I also have a little extra stock if need be, but we will taste it now. Dash more salt. Needs more hot sauce. And a little more Worcestershire. And that's good. And it's now boiling and stirred. So what we're going to do now, we're going to turn it all the way down to low. Going to drop a lid on it. And we'll come back in 20 minutes. I'd also like to point out here that this can also be slid into a preheated 350-degree oven once it's brought back to a boil. Still leave the cover on it, and it can be cooked in the oven. But it's easy just to keep it on the stove, and then you're not dealing with a really hot pan in the oven. So we'll let this go, and we'll see you in 20 minutes. We're about half a minute away from this being done, and what we're going to do is very important. We're going to slide it off the heat, leaving it covered completely. We're going to slide it off the heat, and it's going to sit that way for 10 minutes. And this is before we uncover it. That is an important step in the process because the rice is still continuing to cook. And then if need be, once we uncover it, we can adjust with stock if need be. And then when we fork it through, because you want to use a fork on the rice. So we'll slide it off the heat now and just leave it sitting there for 10 minutes. And we'll be back in 10 minutes and show you how to fluff it and serve. Welcome back to Dinner at Joe's, and we've uncovered the jambalaya. And I have put a fork through it. I'm going to put the last 2 ladles of stock in with it. Just stir it through. Just for a little extra moisture in there. But I gave it a taste and it's delicious. It needs a touch more salt. And I'm going to grind some fresh pepper in here. And then give it a good stir, and that's it. And it looks beautiful. It's the right color. It's wonderful. And this jambalaya, being that it has cooked, everything is cooked together, it can be served on a plate. I'm also going to grab a little parsley for a garnish here. But it's lovely, and you can drink the same wine that you cooked with. And we will have episode of probably in Joe's Kitchen, where we will talk about cooking wine. And there's little bits of dark, crusty bits from the bottom of the pot. This is amazing, and that's a good serving right there. And we will finish with a little chopped parsley. A little around the sides of the plate because it looks pretty. And that's your beautiful jambalaya. And until I see you again, goodbye.